Thank you to our patrons for helping make this podcast possible.
Bill.
What?
What the hell are we talking about today?
Well, I was thinking in my gigantic cranium here, which is occupied mostly with brain and bile, that we could talk about, we had an episode where we talked about the gear that we use, and we've tried to kind of like drop a little bit of knowledge here and there. I was thinking it might be cool to do an episode where it's like you got your gear, you're ready to start rapping or whatever you're doing, making music, and just kind of try to drop a little bit of advice that we've learned over the years of how to get started, what to do when you have something, like how to push, just getting started making music and putting it out there into the world type beat. So I was thinking that could be our topic for today, maybe? Question mark?
Hell yeah. You are now tuning in to Void FM.
4050 feet, why don't you turn around and let's get back into the table. Okay. Let this turn around to your right. Set up. Forward. Let's just lead him. Alright, let us sit right there and walk around it. I just denied that field if you pick up the main set. I don't want to go into the spot if I can afford it. That's right. Let them get a view from there and I'll see what the field of view looks like.
And then they all died.
No way!
They weren't even like single digit age, each one of them too.
Oh man,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
deserved it though. They deserved it.
Anyway, so welcome back to Void FM. Bill, why don't you get us started on this conversation?
Sure, I will give it the old college try. So basically, I don't know. I feel like we could start by talking a little bit about I think one thing is, I know we might be jumping the shark a little bit, but like managing expectations when releasing music, I feel like could be like a good little place to start from.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
Basically, I wanted to just say I've been making music for a very long time now. I mean, if you come through my streams, you know, like I've been making some sort of music since I was like 14 or 15, and I'm 33 now. So more than half of my life I've been...
In quotation marks.
That's what it says on my totally real driver's license. So...
Yeah. It doesn't match the birth certificate, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that, actually. So moving on. What I'm getting at is I've been making music for more than half of my life now. And for the majority of that time, no one gave a shit about it. No one cared. Like, my mom said it was nice and cute that I did that. But until I was like maybe 24, 25, I saw literal kind of like, I was in communities and stuff, but like, I would get a few downloads here and there that were free. I was making no money from it. It took a long time to monetize it and get to a point where I could like live comfortably. And I also know that we are the lucky few, like the 1% or less than 1% of people who do it that actually get the opportunity to make money off of it. And basically, just kind of talking about how, because like I feel like I had kind of an unhealthy perception when I first started on, like, when I was doing it, I thought that it was good and that I was like, okay, like I'm making good music, I'm putting it out there to the world. Why am I being slept on? I also felt like I didn't really understand that most of the work isn't just making good music. Most of it is putting it out there, like world building. There's a lot of steps to it. And I know I'm kind of like hitting you with a lot of stuff right now, but I feel like this is basically I had a unhealthy relationship with it when I first started, where I was like, I wanted to be like a famous rapper, and I didn't really care about the monetary aspect of it as much as like wanting to be heard and validated, through music. And I did not get that for a very, very long time. And it was it hurt me a bit. And I now realize that there is a reality where like it never worked out. And was the music still good? I mean, I think it was. I think that managing your expectations is a huge part of it. Do you want to talk about it a little bit? You want to expand on this?
No. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, I think managing expectations is definitely something you need to establish right out the gate. You need to understand, what are you in it for? And it's not a matter of convincing anyone else, rather than establishing that with yourself first and foremost. Are you doing it for just the catharsis, the artistic expression? If that's the case, then so long as you're making music, you're successful in that endeavor.
For sure.
If you are looking for it to become your primary source of income, your career, then that's a whole nother set of expectations. And you need to reckon with the fact that you are one of millions of people with the exact same ambitions. And you are not necessarily going to get as lucky, because as we've previously discussed in the past, and as we will probably discuss today, luck is arguably the biggest factor. Don't let anybody else fool you into thinking that it's hard work or that it's how good you are, because I know plenty of incredibly talented people, hardworking people, who never got quite as lucky as someone like myself. Last time we talked about the subject matter, I mentioned that I had over 100 million streams on Spotify alone. I'm actually nearing 200 million streams on Spotify, and I'm living somewhat comfortably off of music, but that should not be the bar for comfort. So if you are looking for some sort of a level of stability, I'm not saying there are professions that, out there that offer 100% stability, 0% risk. There's always risk with all sorts of career choices and paths. But I would say going to medical school might yield more tangible results, as opposed to pursuing something in the field of arts and entertainment. And if your ambitions are not necessarily to do with money but fame, I would say it's a similar situation. And for both money and fame, what you need to do once you've established that that is what you are in it for, you need to be able to make sense of what the goal is. Where is that finish line? Now, obviously, there's no real finish lines in life, because once you cross one, another set of finish lines appears before you. But what is it that you're aiming for? You can't just be like, well, I want to be comfortable,
Yeah.
Oh, well, I want to be somewhat rich, because these are generic terms. And maybe when you start making multiple $1 million a year, you're like, I'm making good money, but it's not enough. I want to make more money. You need to establish what is that goal. And same goes with fame. Like, what is it that you want? How famous are you looking to be? And do you understand all the risks that come with that? All the flip side shit that comes with fame. And I would say, what is the reason? That's something you need to search within yourself, with your therapist, and in your own mind. But what is it about attention that attracts you? What is it that fuels your narcissism? Because that's what it is. If you want to be the best in the world at anything, you are absolutely a narcissist, right? And that's just not necessarily an unhealthy thing, so long as you are somewhat self-aware and aware of the people around you as well, sympathetic. Because if there is some sort of issue at the root of your attention seeking, then your attention seeking is just a symptom. And addressing that symptom by satisfying it, satiating it with the attention that you want, will only tend to that symptom temporarily, but it will not take care of the root cause. If you feel unhappy, if there's something that, maybe it's trauma the fuels that need for attention. It is healthier to tend to it not by just succumbing to those other, I don't know what to call them, not habits, but addictions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just things you're drawn to too, I think. Like I don't know if like addiction is the right word, but yeah, like I think I mean basically I think sometimes it is just important to look at like why you're doing things. With me, I was always just like, oh, like there's a part of me that wanted to just be respected. I never wanted to be like number one, but I wanted to get to a point where I could do music full time. That was my goal. Was like, could I do music full time and make more money than I was making at my job and just be able to do that? That was my short-term goal, was like, okay, cool. Like that's my way in. Like the idea of like when people say like making it, that's what I looked at as like the lowest form of that, you know? And don't get me wrong, like I think that now my opinions have changed on like I care less about the idea of being respected as like a first goal, like being like, oh, like yeah, dude, you think of Aesop Rock, Danny Brown, Kill Bill the rapper, like that isn't like a thing I think about as much now. But there was like a time in my life where that was like a big deal for me, you know? And I think like my goalpost shifted, but like I didn't ever ask myself why I was doing it. I think for me, there was a point of like almost like I didn't have anything better going for me in my life. And I was like, well, this is the best shot I've got to like have like a somewhat stable career. I don't know, like, or something, just money coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And that was like a big thing for me, was like, I didn't want to like give up on my dreams and like get like a normal 9 to 5 that I would do for the rest of my life. Like everything was like just a means to get to that point, you know? And I think like in retrospect, I think that was like not a super healthy way. Like if like it worked out, right? Like music worked out, but there was a time period where it didn't work out when I was like working at Ruby Tuesday, and I was very frustrated with my life, and I felt like I was like dumping all of my eggs into this basket. And I had like, you know, I wouldn't say like crazy anger issues or something, but I was like, I would like wake up mad, you know what I mean? And like, that's not like a good way to like live your life, you know?
Right.
Like, I think that if music had not worked out for me, it would have been like a very different, like my outlook on life would be very different. And I think that's like not good. You know, I think that there's a lot of people that feel like if they dump all their time and energy into this thing, which is like incredibly luck based, you can be really good at something and it could just not connect with people for a thousand different reasons. You know, it's really hard now to like stand out in the crowd, you know, or from the crowd. You know, that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because like everybody wants to do something creative now because anyone can do it. Like
everything's become more accessible, right? That's why we have, I feel like so many people now are growing up wanting to be like YouTubers and shit like that.
For sure.
You know,
it's the same thing to me. Like that you're trying to scratch the same itch in a different way, you know, and it's just anyone can do it like in some kind of way. And there's like an audience for almost anything. You know, and I think that it makes it harder to stand out now too because of that, because everyone does what you're doing probably better than you're doing. The
volume,
yeah, exactly. Like it's difficult and it can be really discouraging. But I would say like take a long hard look on like why you really want to do shit, because like you can make music and like have a small fan base and like work a 9 to 5 and like be happy. You know what I mean?
That was me for the longest time.
For sure.
After a certain age, I didn't have any ambitions beyond like, I just want to keep making music, whatever happens, you know? And that's still the case. And that's a lot easier to also hold on to, right? If my goal was to be a career rapper, that's still in my eyes maybe be putting too many eggs in one basket, because what happens when that basket gets snatched away from you? What are you left with? But your thumb up your ass and your dick in your hand, right? To me, it's not something that can be necessarily taken away from me if artistic expression is something I'm committed to making time for regardless of what happens. But, you know, we talked about this off mic, how some people, I think it's good to believe in yourself. I just want to preface it with this. It's everything I'm about to say is not necessarily coming from a place of judgment, but moderation is important. Anything in excess can be a risk to you. And that includes just unbridled confidence in oneself. Like, oh, I know this is going to work out for me. Especially in an area that is, again, your success is highly informed by luck. So, you were saying off cam how some people will start working on a mixtape, get face tats, and be like, oh yeah, this is my commitment to my music career. Like, I know I'm not going to get hired at like a Starbucks or anywhere else like that anymore, but it's okay because I'm going to be a full-time rock star now, right? Some people might look at that and be like, damn, that's hard. That's bold. He's confident. Sure. It's also stupid and reckless. Just as it would be if you bought a lottery ticket and before you scratched the numbers out, you got face tats and went, oh, I know I'm about to win the lottery, so I ain't even tripping. To you might not sound like the same thing, right? Because it's not apples to apples, but both involve primarily luck, right? Lottery may be more than rapping or something like that, but it's still in large has to do with a lot of luck.
For sure.
And locking yourself into a commitment like that, unless you understand all the risks properly, would be unwise. And let's say you're dipping your toes into music and then you're like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to make money off of music. I'm going to make a bunch of music. I'm going to be putting it out. Set a goal, set realistic goals, not just the final deadline, but the micro deadlines. How much money do you want to be making by the end of the year off of this? How much money do you want to make until you feel comfortable and that you want to hold on to? Make these goals for yourself and realize that gusto alone is not enough. I know a lot of incredibly talented people that have never had success and might never have success, And it sucks whenever I see friends get into a new thing, a new artistic venture or like rap, and they're like, like, I'm going to make this my thing now. I'm going to for sure just dive whole head in. It's so unlikely. I don't ever want to discourage people from art, but if your anticipation is success, whether it's monetary or fame, I worry for you because of how deeply unlikely it is. Just from a statistical standpoint, it is deeply unlikely.
I mean, I think like too, it's like, I think one of the things that, because it's like almost like meritocracy, right? Like the idea of like, for example, going back to the face tat thing, like if you want to get face tats, get face tats. If that's something you want to do with your life and that is a decision you're willing to make, like there are risks that come with that in terms of employment and stuff, but it's like, if you want to make those risks, that's fine. However, I think that like the idea of like, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go all in on this thing. This is going to be my personality from now on. Is I'm going to be a rapper or I'm going to be a musician or whatever. And I'm going to have this as a story for when I'm famous and I can go back and say, well, I quit my job. I started working on my mixtape. I moved to LA and I had $5 in my pocket and I spent those $5 to get a shitty face tat. There's
also like a level of superstition in this, I think, where people feel like if they do certain things, that they're more likely to lock themselves into like more favorable luck,
Yeah, for sure. And I think that a lot of times people like that who are just like all in on this thing, it's just like, well, no, you don't really hear the stories of the people that it doesn't work out for, because I think a lot of times either like they'll have like, a lot of times I'll see people make excuses, and I don't mean that like, oh man, like I mean, like they'll make something and then they'll say like, hey, like, oh, this just didn't take off because it like wasn't the right audience or the right time or whatever the thing is, which could very well be true because like, I don't know. I mean, like shit pops off all the time that I'm not necessarily into, like, so it's like, it like straight up might be that, but I think you don't hear about that. You only hear about the few success stories of that. And it's like a super like unhealthy way to look at it, because like it doesn't work out for a lot of people, or it like halfway works out for some people. You know what I mean? It doesn't like really hit that goal that they wanted, but they get a little noise or whatever, and then they just fizzle out. And it's like, it's not worth the pain that you put yourself through if it doesn't work out to be that way. Like you said earlier, believing in yourself is awesome. Like that is a good step to putting yourself out there for the world to hear and all that stuff. Like having confidence and believing in yourself is like a great character trait, and it will keep you going. I just think that setting yourself up with this like insane goal or whatever the thing is that is like, it's just don't hurt yourself that way. There's not, just if you want to make shit, make shit. You can make shit on the weekends, bro. Like it doesn't have to be like, I think that's the thing, is like people don't understand the idea that like hobbyists make good music. Like it's fine to be a hobbyist and put out an album every 6 years or whatever if you want to, for free or whatever, you know? I just think that like managing your expectations is like a really big part. And I know that like we're talking about advice, and it does seem like we're kind of dwelling on this a little while, but like to me, this is like a very important, like a little preface, like a little asterisk at the beginning, that you are most likely not going to make it, you know?
Yes.
And that is okay, because that's the rest of the fucking world. That's like...
Exactly. That's 99% of the world.
Yeah. And that's fine. It's okay if you don't, you know? So...
but it's just like with any big undertaking, any big commitment, any big sacrifice. It merits some reflection and careful assessment before you jump into it. I think a lot of media, especially Western media, romanticizes risk. It romanticizes gambling to the point where it's like, well, you know, he just threw everything away overnight and just thrust himself into this thing and it worked out despite the odds. But don't forget that part, despite the odds, right? That's an important part of the story, because the odds are against you. And
for sure.
If you're going to go climb Mount Everest, you need to understand why it is that you have chosen to climb Mount Everest. And you need to have some sort of backup plan ready in case things start to go awry, and see if you can get out of that situation safely and in one piece, hopefully. And the same goes with any other gamble, such as, you know, going all in on a career. So yeah, you're right. Maybe we are kind of dwelling on this part, but it can't be understated just how important it is that you need to be fully aware of what it is that you're doing and why before you commit to something like this.
I also want to say that I don't think we're actually dwelling too long on this. I think this is the appropriate amount, but I don't want people to be like, oh, I tuned in for the advice. This is good. This is good advice. I think this is very solid advice.
I agree.
I just think that people are going to be like, yeah, well, I can't wait to hear what Bill and Rav have to say so they can help my rap career. They go on here and be like, don't fucking do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but no.
Also, look, I was working 45 to 50 hours a week at my previous job, and I spent 10 to 15 hours a week on just getting to work and coming home from work, right? So a lot of time was spent away from home. I would write songs in my head on my way home on the train, right? I would write songs on my way to work on the train. I would carve out maybe an hour every other weekday in the evening before I go to sleep for going over beats. I'd maybe carve out an hour or two on the weekend to record it and spend the rest of that time with my partner that I lived with. You know what I'm saying? You can have a job that takes up time. You can have a personal life that you tend to, and you can carve out bits of time for things that you love as well. Is it ideal? No, right? In a perfect world, we'd have more time to put into things that we love and into spending time with our loved ones. But even given the current framework that we exist under, I believe it is possible to find success in making music if the version of success to you is just making music. Because to me, I pursued the catharsis of it. It has become a career, and I'm very grateful for it. And I try to make sure I maintain it and approach it as such. But the part that makes it cathartic and liberating in the first place never disappeared. And it's something I always hold on to. And should one day this path no longer be accessible to me, of rapping being a full-time career, best believe I will still make music. I will work at a library. I will work at a 7-Eleven, wherever I need to work, but I will make time to make music. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Same. Yeah. I feel like I'll always make music in some capacity just because like it's fun and it keeps me a little sane, you know? But yeah, I think that maybe we should move on to the fun stuff. Now that we've kind of talked about the doom and the gloom of like, oh, like, yeah, it's really rough to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
in.
Now that we've told you
into-
to just give up while you're at it, here's some advice in case you haven't given up.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you want to talk about? We could talk about one thing that I get a lot of times will be people who like are already making music and they are looking for a way to expand their fan base, get heard by new people, break out of their like bubble of like the people they hang out with on Discord.
Well,
you know,
actually,
and-
you know what? Let's maybe take a step back. We're gonna just assume you have your gear figured out and you know what kind of music you're trying to make. We had an episode on Gear Talk, but before you can expand your audience, you need to have an audience in the first place, right? You need to cultivate. So let's start there, because you mentioned Discord, because that's second nature to someone like you and I, but it isn't to everyone listening in. So what happens if you are at home alone, start making joints? You don't know if they're good or not. You don't know where to take them next. Maybe you're finding yourself hitting a creative wall or a skill level wall or whatever. You're finding it difficult to get people to listen to your music outside of your mom, outside of your best friend at school, you know? Outside of your bully who found your SoundCloud and makes fun of you now in front of the rest of the class, or whatever it might be, right? First, you need to find a community. Now, when we were growing up, it looked different. I think when Bill first joined a community was sort of around the time when the internet started developing communities for artists. I was doing so in person in the early 2000s, more old school way of just like going to nightclubs, battling people, being in ciphers. But nowadays, there's no shortage of communities, especially with platforms like Discord, where you can find like-minded individuals, join these communities, and then create spin-off communities based on the people that you gravitate towards and you start fucking with. Maybe you guys enjoy a show in common, or maybe you guys enjoy a particular artist in common. And then you're like, oh shit, they make beats. This is kind of dope. Their beats are pretty dope. They're like, oh, word? You can rap over them if you want. You're like, shit, now I have access to beats through this person. Oh, there's another person that raps. You could do features. Y'all could rap on each other's joints and things like that. That is going to be so impactful. I don't think enough people talk about that. But just being in a community that's living and breathing, where other people are coming up with ideas, other people are pushing themselves in each other and inspiring one another and motivating one another, is going to be incredibly helpful. And on top of that, you guys are now each other's audience. You now have 2-3 views on top of whatever you had, maybe 10 views, maybe 20, maybe it's a Discord of 20 people where you're all encouraging each other, and maybe you work in different mediums. Some of you do visual arts, drawing, some of you animate, some of you make beats, some of you sing, some of you rap, some of you mix, whatever it might be. All mix of people. You can be there and you can now create things together and make, and not butt heads, but link up and discuss ideas, brainstorm stuff, push each other, and then listen to each other, support one another. Yo, this shit is crazy. Of course, your friend on Discord that you just made is not going to be as fucking dope at rapping as like an Aesop Rock, right? But if you're a normal individual, you're not going to be looking at them like that. You're going to be looking at them at like what their potential is and where they are at and where you are at, and understanding that this is a healthy place to start. If you can do that, then you have successfully started an audience. It may not seem like an audience because it seems like an insular community, but this is how all things start. It doesn't start with an huge explosion. More times than not, it starts from like a small drop that ripples slowly but surely.
For sure. I think that there's multiple reasons why it's good to join communities, like beyond just the aspects of like, oh, you have people who will now be listening to you, and like you're working with people, and then like they're putting out their music, and then people who hear their music are hearing you on their music and all this other stuff. Like also just like from a mental standpoint of like that, like that's a motivating factor of like, okay, cool. Like I'm not just doing this for nothing. Like I'm not just doing this for myself at this point. Now it's like people are listening. People are giving me opinions. People want to work on stuff. I think using that as a people ask a lot about motivation to me, like on streams and stuff, like how do I stay motivated to do this or whatever. I think like having people who legitimately give a fuck about what you're doing, no matter how small it is, even if it's just like your boys on Discord and y'all are just like, oh man, yo, did you finish that song? Because like I really liked what you rapped for me on the Discord. You know what I mean? Like oh man, like if you had like an 808 on this, like, and then they put an 808 on it, you know what I mean? Like that type shit. Like it's really cool. And I think like for me getting started, because I turned to the internet because I was in a small town and I didn't know any musicians at first. I turned to the internet and that was like where I got most of my rap friends that are still, a lot of those people I still talk to today. Like Rav is one of them, you know, it's
allegedly.
Yeah. You're not beating the allegations of being my friend. But yeah, no, basically, it's super duper important to do that. And it'll be good for you and it'll be good for both like from a mental standpoint, but also for it'll help you hone your craft. They'll make you better. People who are actively into stuff and they'll give you criticism, but yeah, I think I've seen it happen like in our community a lot. Like it'll be like rap groups that spawned out of people who are like chilling in our Discord, and that's just cool as fuck. Like it's really cool to see people who are like all like-minded and putting out music and everybody's like fucking with each other and shit. It's awesome. I fuck with it
100%. So that's a place to start in this day and age. Now, who knows? Maybe a year or two from now, that'll change. But whatever it looks like, in essence, it's always going to be the same thing. You don't want to be doing this all alone, preferably. Even if you are a solo artist, just again, you want to be around other people, because the reality is nobody gives a shit that you're making music. You know how many people make music? Tons. And your song on SoundCloud has 2-3 plays. I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to come across that. What are the chances I'll even be recommended that by the algorithm? So you got to start somewhere. Find those ears. And if they're creative people too, again, it will give you ideas. Even if they are in other mediums or other genres, sometimes you'll be like, yo, what? How did you do that? Yo, how'd you make your voice sound like that? Oh, yeah. Yo, how does your snare cutting through the sample so good? How'd you I figured out this thing that you can do, or like, I watched this video, here you go. Resource sharing, skill sharing, all of these things are going to be a positive thing. But what do you do 100%. Once you have that audience, that community, right? What do you do once you have that community? Some of you do, and y'all have asked us, how do I grow my audience? And let's talk about it. I think, in short, it's the word that I don't really particularly like using, branding, but there's a way to look at it that doesn't feel so corporate and cold. So when discussing things among ourselves, we usually refer to branding as world building, because that's essentially what it is, right? When you think of certain artists, maybe the logo of their name pops into your head, maybe certain colors, maybe certain sounds that you associate, maybe certain people, certain vibes, clothing that you associate with them, right? I say Tyler, the Creator, you probably have a number of things come to mind. right? Maybe his fashion sense, maybe the kind of instrumentation he tends to go with, the type of processing on the songs, the type of covers he makes, the type of ad libs he uses, etc. Right? That is all branding, and you could call that branding, or you could
For
call
sure.
it world building. A lot of artists look at, well, I have this song, I finished the song that said everything else is just so frustrating. Why do I have to find a cover? Why do I have to promo my shit and market my shit? First of all, you don't. You don't have to do any of that. But it helps. And it definitely helps if you can enjoy the process. If you can learn to see all these other elements as an extension of the overall creative process, you're going to have a better time. In fact, you might get sucked into it and discover hidden talents you didn't know you had. I rapped way long before I did anything else, right? I've been rapping for decades now. And throughout my career, just through necessity, I learned how to use Photoshop. I learned how to edit images, photos. I learned how to draw. I learned how to animate. I learned how to video edit. I learned how to design merchandise. I learned how to promo things. I learned how to stream, make podcasts. I learned how to speak in a public setting, etc. All these other things that help the world. And you don't need to be a one-stop shop for everything. You don't need to be jack of all trades. That's not what I'm saying. But all these things that encompass a release can be a part of a creative process and can be an excuse to build on your world. So, for example, something, again, we talked about this off mic, but I remember driving home, well, being driven home from Blockbuster as a kid, and we rented out a game, and I'm sitting in the back of the car. I haven't played the game yet, but I can't stop looking at the cover. I can't stop looking at the back cover. It's already putting me in the mood. It's already the pictures, the things that it says. I'm catching a vibe. I'm already in there. Before the game's even been launched, I'm already participating in it. I open up the booklet. I go through the manual. If it happens to have cool things, which back in the day, lots of people would do that, take effort into doing that add it to the overall experience. So by the time I put the disc in, I'm already in. And it's very similar with music, I'm sure some of you might have purchased CDs, cassettes, or vinyl at some point in your life, right? And then just looked at it and like, holy fuck, before you even opened it, before you even ripped the shrink wrap, because you're like, damn, it looks so good in the shrink wrap.
Yeah.
You look at the back and you open it up and there's stuff inside. Oh, fuck, this artist decided to include a foreword. It feels intimate. It feels like, holy shit, I'm getting a bit of them. And they hand signed it. I mean, it's printed, but it's their handwriting. It is their little drawing. It's their little touch. It's their little jokes. Whatever it is, it's a photo they took. It's a photo of them. All of these things play a part in the excitement and the experience. And when you put the music on and you're enjoying it and you can look at the cover and enjoy it at the same time, it can make an experience that transcends just listening to music. Sometimes when I'll put on a record, if I'm looking at the cover and they match perfectly, I just can't stop. I'm just like, I'm there. Here's this cover, here's this music. It's all encompassing. It feels tangible. It's world building, right? It's cohesive. Just like someone's merch could be cohesive. Again, the people that you think of as like, oh, really good people at who have good aesthetics are essentially people who are good at world building. I'm going to bring Tyler, the Creator, back as a point of reference. Someone who, yes, went through various eras in his career, different aesthetics, etc., but he always had a strong sense of aesthetic each junction in his career. And it was shown through the covers, the photos he would take, the blogs he would post, the tweets he would post. All of this was a bigger part of what Tyler, the Creator, and Odd Future were. It wasn't just the songs. And he never made it look like it was a drag, because probably for him it wasn't. Probably for him it was just as exciting. And now look at him. I think he designs Louis Vuitton merchandise.
I just saw that
now, right?
Yeah.
You think he's doing that because he's been forced to do it. No, it's something he's developed a talent for. Aesthetics. It's something he developed a talent for. It's something he's always had a passion for. It's another avenue for him to express himself. It is, again, his world that he's managed to just grow further and further. And people who do that, and like even his promo videos, when he was putting them out, he was shooting them. He was coming up with funny ideas and original ideas of promoting stuff. Yes, there are people who are just like, here's a poster, I'm going on tour, and the poster is uninspired. It's just like big lettering, maybe a couple of photos of artists, and it'll be like something that you can tell no one really cared. They just kind of threw it at someone else. Someone else took care of it. It wasn't the artist really participating in that world. You can tell when someone's just copy pasting whatever is the common approach, and you can tell when someone's carving out like something new. They're doing something creative. They're using it as a form of expression. For a lot of our promo videos, for instance, in the past, we could have just had a video where it's like cover art zooming in and out, like, oh, this vinyl available now. Get it at the blah, blah, blah store, you know?
Yeah.
But we put effort. We filmed entire skits in the past as forms of advertising this stuff. Was it a bother? No. It would have been a pain in the ass if we tweeted in very boring ways, or if we created content, promo content in this boring way. It would be a drag. It would be difficult to do. But because we've been able to transform it into another form of expression for ourselves, it's fun. It's another thing to have fun with. Now, when we work on an album, I'm not just excited about the musical stuff. I'm excited about designing the merch for it. For this album, I'm excited to design this set, not just the set list, but the set for the tour for that album, the poster for that album, the cover art, the individual cover for the singles. What is the bio gonna look like for this thing? I could make it something really creative. You know, like I really loved how early on it was edgy, and in retrospect hasn't aged quite as well for me because I'm older now. But a lot of like early Lil Ugly Mane stuff that he would be uploading to Bandcamp, what I loved is his descriptions had a style, this all caps, just like, here's a bunch of shit from a fucking sewer that I found, you know. I
remember that. The Oblivion Access one. Yeah, that was that
basically
promo run was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, saying like this is poop from a butt, but extending it into an essay, you know?
Yeah,
Instead of being like, this person mixed it, this person did that. The liner notes and credits, that's great too. You could still have that, but he used that as he used it almost like as a blog post, you know? His Bandcamp post looked like Tumblr post to me because I could look at the cover, I was listening to the music, and I was reading the description, and it felt like, whoa, my taste buds are... there's a lot of different flavors that I'm getting hit with.
I can taste literal human shit right now while reading this.
My taste buds are like lighting up, and there's different things that are being excited. My monkey brain, my neurons being activated, right? Because I'm visually being stimulated, sonically being stimulated. I'm thinking about the things I'm reading. That cannot be understated. And a lot of people who do view that shit as a drag or don't nurture a talent for it, because it's not necessarily something you're born with. It's something you have to grow into and then work on and nurture. And those that don't nurture it, you could tell they fucking hate putting out projects. You know, they're not good at promoting their own stuff. They're not good about talking about their own stuff. They view that point as a drag. They already want to work on the new album, which, look, happens to everyone, but it especially happens to you when it feels like the album's done and you, of course, want to work on new music. But to me, until everything else is taken care of, the album's not really done. That's all part of the album for me. If you can do that for yourself, then it will be easier. You know, we were talking about you have your audience with your people, etc. If they're liking it, if they're seeing, if they're leaving comments, it's already stimulating it in the algorithm more than most content that gets put out. Because most content that gets created gets almost no views and has no engagement, no comments, no favorites, no nothing. So you're already ahead of the game if you have like even like a handful of homies interacting with your shit, and it means it's more likely to get pushed elsewhere. And all you need is to maximize your chances. So if someone comes across your shit, they're like, yo, this is dope. And then they click on your shit and they see, oh, your PFP is dope. Your banner matches your PFP, or it kind of working together. Your description is really sick and somehow manages. They click on your media page. They scroll through it. They're like, oh, shit, he's been posting a lot of different songs. Let me hear. Oh, I fuck with this. Oh, I fuck with this. Damn, his visual aesthetic is fucking on point. I fucks with this. They will, if they connect with it, if someone connects with it, they're likely to try to put someone else on because they're thinking, this shit is dope. I came across something that is dope that not many people are tapped into. Let me put my friends on, and that's how it starts. That is how it starts. And if you can grow it from that point onwards, all you need to do is stay consistent and just keep building on a catalog. You cannot blow the fuck up realistically, period, but you can certainly not grow an audience if you're sitting there for like 10 songs thinking to yourself, why is no one listening to me? There's very few instances where someone gets away with dropping almost no music ever and just popping off. Like Doja Cat. I talked with her back in the day, shortly after she put out So High. So High. She recorded it on the MacBook mic. You could hear the buzz of the Mac at the start of the song if you paid attention. She recorded it. It got over 1 million views on SoundCloud, which especially back then was a huge deal. She got that shit really quickly. She managed to get a manager and a small deal off of that. She connected with OG Maco's people at the time. She had a small deal with them. Continued just making a small buzz, building on that buzz. And then when she put out Bitch, I'm a Cow, which went viral, she already had an audience base that could share that around to begin with. And then for the normies outside of her audience, of course, seeing that, they're like, huh, yeah, this is kind of funny, or this is kind of unusual, or she's sexy, or whatever it is that made people want to share it, they'll continue to spread it. But she is a rare example of someone who managed to get a bunch of success off of one song. That is not how things work ordinarily. Especially nowadays that we don't have like communities like SoundCloud anymore, really.
For sure. I also think just from a standpoint of longevity, like for us, it's always been like a super slow burn, right? Like it's always been like, okay, cool. Like we put out a whole bunch of music and then like people went and looked at our back catalog and was like, holy shit, there's so much here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Ramona popped off years after it was out.
Yeah. I dropped it in 2014. And so 10 years ago. Crazy. Yeah, crazy. 10 years ago. Way to make me feel old. But yeah, so basically I dropped it in 2014 and it got like 400 downloads on Bandcamp at the time. And I made like $50. And I was like, holy shit, I'm on. But yeah, like, yeah, no one, it didn't really go anywhere from there. That was like, oh shit, okay. And that was like, at the time I was like, damn, like this is like, I put so much effort into this. I thought like this was like my thing. Like I felt like it was going to like pop off. And it wasn't until like 2017, 2018 that it started, like people started to like pay attention to it more again. And I think there was an audience of people, like I had like a small cult fan base on like, you know, message boards and Twitter and Tumblr and stuff like that. But it wasn't like kind of what it is now to a lot of people. And, but yeah, like it, but then there was a huge surge of people that were like, oh yeah, I remember that when that came out, like sort of like, yeah, that was a cool little moment. Oh shit, this dude's dropped 3-4 other things since then, you know, like, oh, he's got collab albums with Rav now. He's got like all this other, you know what I mean? Like it was like, for a lot of people, it was like going back and be like, oh shit, he's been busy. Let's go back and listen to all of this. And it's like, if you're also talking from like a monetary standpoint, like having like a lot of music is good, because like if we had the same amount of listeners that we do now that don't listen to a bunch of different music from us, then we would be making way less money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's like standing outside with a sample of like some real, like a dope drink. And they're like, damn, this shit is sick. You're like, yeah, I got a store. And you bring them in. If you got a bunch of different drinks, a bunch of different options to select from, you know, that's infinitely better than just being like, yeah, come inside. And it's just like that one drink, maybe one other one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And slow burn, in my opinion, and of course, you know, people will probably think I'm biased because that has been our approach. But I do think slow burn is a more reasonable approach for longevity, because if you're an overnight success, you can also burn out overnight. You can be replaced with another overnight success. But if people grow up with you, they're buying your merch, they're going to your shows, they're listening to your projects as they come out, they develop a special bond with you. You're growing up with them. If you can grow
Facts.
up with your audience, there is no more rewarding experience for me as like a career artist, you know? And these are the people who will return to your live shows. These are the people who will buy more merch in the future. These are people who are likely to tune in the future and engage with your social media posts about your future work. So you can burn out if you're an overnight success, you can burn out really quickly. But if you're slow boil, slow simmer, slow burn artist, you cannot burn out overnight unless, like, I don't know, you're on the fucking Epstein flight logs or something, right? But it's just not very likely. In fact, this is why there's been many peers, there's been many artists that came into the game way after Bill and I had been rapping. And they had a crazy career high, and everybody knew them, and everybody paid attention for a moment. And then they went away, and now no one gives a shit, right? So there are people who have had way higher highs than Bill and I have had in our careers, but we have been stable, and we've been able to make careers out of this. And some of them have not had as much luck. They had this crazy high, then they dropped down, and now they're back flipping burgers or whatever it might be. That happens, you know? So if you are looking to make this into a career from a standpoint of, like, you know, making something, I don't know if tangible is the right word, but something more realistic, I think a slow burn approach makes way more sense.
I agree with that sentiment. I think that's just how, I think it's just easier to maintain. And also it's like a thing that you don't have to feel this fight for relevancy is not really a thing when you've just invested in just making a bunch of projects and like this kind of slow come up. It's like it feels like it's good. Like I wouldn't do it differently. Like if I could go back, I wouldn't really change much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think this is a good introduction to this conversation, and it's something we certainly will revisit again in the future and just continue providing insights and advice. But for now, let's do obscure hip-hop facts of the week with Rav and Kill Bill the Rapper.
Guess who doesn't have any? I
You can grab the ones from the
forgot.
last 2 weeks that we never used.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I got those.
Okay, so did you know that rapper Ka, is a firefighter, or at least once was a firefighter, and in fact was a firefighter during 9/11. He was a firefighter in New York. He wasn't, I don't think he was called to the scene there, because I don't think that's the area he was in, but in 2013, he discussed being a firefighter, saying, "I have a full-time job and I work all the time. I try to keep that kind of low. I just have a job. It ain't my calling or nothing. It's just my job." Now, I don't know if he still has that job or not. And I don't want, maybe let's not turn this one into a short, Mitch, because I don't want this one to necessarily reach a whole lot of people, because it doesn't seem like Khan necessarily wanted to talk about it. But the only reason I'm talking about it is because the New York Post on August 2016 wrote like a scathing article about Ka, saying that, oh, you know, Ka has a double life as a hip hop artist whose songs are peppered with the N-word, drugs, violence, and anti-cop lyrics. So, you know, they were big mad, and they kind of exposed his job and his work to a greater audience in the first
Fuck
place.
them.
Yeah. But it connects to the conversation we had earlier, you know, someone who has a job, someone who has a job that pays his bills, whilst also being one of the greatest rappers of all time. Kai is in my top 5. And if my top 5 artists can have a firefighter job and also pursue an artistic journey, then so can I.
Facts. Well said.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you mean it?
No. Not even kinda.
Did you know that Earl Sweatshirt's manager, Layla Steinberg, was also Tupac's first manager?
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Neat. Dude, that'd be such a good short. Just like neat.
Yeah, she managed Tupac from 89 until 1993 with guidance from Digital Underground's manager. She's managed Ray Love and Mac Mall, and she remains close with both of them. And these days, she manages rappers like Earl Sweatshirt through her company, Steinberg Management International. It's just cool to see her work with two very different artists across very different generations. And yet there's also overlap, you know. I would say, although Tupac and Earl Sweatshirt are very different stylistically, I would say there is an overlapping ethos.
For sure.
Somewhat.
100%.
R.I.P. Tupac, and shouts out Earl Sweatshirt.
Yeah. Both incredibly goated in their own ways. Did you know that Rav is a stupid, poopy pants, dumb fuck?
Wow. I had no idea.
Wow, dude. Yeah, man. Well, there's this article that I have pulled up here from the Daily Bugle, and it says that Rav kind of fucking sucks. Kind of blows. Yeah.
Yeah?
But yeah, shout out to Rav. He's like one of the goats.
Yeah, R.I.P.
R.I.P. Rav, man. He did that shit.
Yeah.
I feel like we should leave that in. Did you know that Bobby Shmurda's breakout single, Hot Fella, uses the same beat of a Lloyd Banks song called Jackpot? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good talk, man. It's kind of neat, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those situations where it's like, you know, I remember when the joint dropped. I think it was 2014 when we were working on Ramona. And
I wanted to say, is it? Yeah, about that time, yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting summer. That joint dropped, and Deja Loaf's Try Me dropped as well. I remember that. Good era. But I remember thinking like, damn, this beat is crazy. It's so dope. But the way that Bobby was writing it very much played a huge part in it. Because look, Lloyd Banks is a super talented artist, right? And he had already used that beat. It didn't connect quite as much with the people. Is it because Bobby was someone new? Is it because the video was very charismatic and viral? Was it because of Bobby Shmurda's dance? You know? Was it his rapping, writing, whatever? It's probably due to a number of factors, you know? But it's cool. It's one of those rare instances. It happens sometimes, but it's one of those instances where a song blows up, and not that a version of that song already existed, but kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. It was like well, I mean, there's been a few instances of that happening. Like I remember, like, you know, at least in my friend group, when like Mr. Jones dropped by Mike Jones, like nobody was really listening to that as much as like The Sky Is the Limit, which was which is the Wayne version of that. You know, both are good songs, but
yeah, exactly. Both are great songs, but one connected with people more than the other. The way I view it is like Lloyd Banks is like ice cream. Ice cream is fucking delicious and it's amazing. And Bobby Shmurda is spaghetti with tomato sauce, and spaghetti with tomato sauce is goated. And the beat was buffalo mozzarella. You know, it was kind of weird with ice cream. It didn't make the ice cream worse, much worse or anything like that, but it just didn't quite connect as much as the spaghetti pomodoro did with the buffalo mozzarella.
I think you're tripping. I love buffalo mozzarella on my iced cream.
I feel like maybe that wasn't the best analogy because it makes it sound like Lloyd Banks was ass on it, which I'm not saying at all. Maybe instead of ice cream, let's say like spaghetti bolognese. And the buffalo mozzarella went well with the spaghetti bolognese, but it just goes so much better with the pomodoro. That's how I see it.
You're right. You're
But it doesn't
spitting
make
right
one
now.
better than the other, right? It's just some things connect better than others. So it's a matter of how you mix the ingredients.
For sure. No, you're cooking. You're cooking. And you're also kind of making me hungry with all these
Yeah, me
bolognese
too.
and spaghetti and
Talk about that
all
spaghetti
that.
thing that you love so much.
Yo, my arms are sweaty.
Yeah, talk about it.
Vomit on my sweaty already. Palms are sweaty.
Hold on.
He's sweaty. But on the surface, he looks calm and sweaty to drop bombs, but he keeps on the sweaty.
What he wrote down.
What he wrote down, the crowd goes so sweaty. This vomit on is sweaty already. Mom is sweaty. He's sweaty. It just keeps going back on itself the entire time, you know? Yeah, I'm going to stop now. I feel like my brain is officially tapping out of whatever this is.
Yeah. Why don't we call it a day here? I feel like this episode's long enough. We can always return with more obscure hip hop facts in the future.
For sure. I'm sorry for letting you all down by only having 1 to 2 amazing facts.
Yeah, your own 1 to 2 amazing facts. I like the one about rap. That was pretty good. Actually.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I did a lot of research.
R.I.P. Legend.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call him that, but yeah, he's dead.
Mean, just a myth, but like a god.
No,
that
he
walked
existed
amongst men.
He's just a dead guy.
Just talking about any historic person is like, yeah, he's just a dead guy.
Yeah, I mean, facts, kinda.
Well, that's facts. All right, well, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Next week, should things go according to plan, we will be having our first ever guest on the podcast.
Woo!
So, something to look forward to. In the meantime, Bill, what the fuck's going on over on our Patreon?
Oh my goodness gracious. Let me tell you all about what's going on our Patreon. Come here. I'm gonna start doing those things like the TikTokers are like, come here, and then they zoom in. Anyway, so you can cut that whole thing out anyway.
I'm looking at boomer ass
No,
then,
you have to
bro.
include
That was crazy.
What the fuck was that?
The Patreon. The Patreon. We've been doing this thing. I don't know if you guys have not gotten the memo, but we have a new tier on our Patreon. So we have a $5 tier where you can get all the episodes, the bonus episodes. We drop one a week alongside one of our free episodes. So we have one behind the paywall, then one that you're probably watching right now. And then we have a new tier, which is a $20 tier, which we have an advice hour. Well, there's two things that come with it. We have the advice hour, which is an opportunity for you guys to talk to us in the Discord and ask us for life advice. And those will be recorded and dropped as the bonus episodes. And so you don't have to talk to us directly, but it's a cool thing you can do. Or we could just read your text or a voice message. And so we did that one last week and it went over really well. And so we're going to go do that soon today. But then on top of that, you also get your name at the beginning of the episode if you're in the $20 tier. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
You might have seen it at the beginning of this episode. You might be like, whoa, what the heck? Who are those guys? That's who they are. And you could be one of them. Rav, take us home.
Yeah, two tiers. You get extra content every week, regardless of what tier you go with. Usually we give you an hour extra of content. The other week, it was 2 hours extra. It's not unusual for us to get over an hour and a half of extra content. Bill uploaded a folder with his Xbox beats from the early to mid 2000s.
Hell yeah.
I uploaded stuff. I'm going to be posting either this week or next week a bunch of edits of Bill and Mitch photos and possibly myself as well. You might have seen Bill use some of these kinds of images for his streams. Ahead of his streams, he tweets those images out as promo. I'm planning to work on a bunch of those and you guys will be the first to see it. So, we do shit like that, man.
Yeah, we do shit.
Yeah, we do shit despite what they say.
True. We
Did they
also
say
do.
anything?
We also do shit.
Hey, yo.
VoidFM.net, baby.
So, Mitch, what are you telling us this time? What are we learning today?
If you don't have anything nice to say sorry.
Bye.
See ya.
The following is a preview of this week's Patreon exclusive episode. Available now over on the Void FM podcast Patreon.
We're starting off this week's one with the advice corner. When you break up with someone, the more you've invested in that person, the more eggs you place in that basket, the more it hurts. It feels like a bigger part of you is gone, you know?
Even if you tried to communicate about this, like finding a way where that communication will work. I feel the same way, like in relationships, I hate having smoke with people. Like I hate people being like upset at me and I'm like always like, okay, we gotta fix this.